everyone, and welcome to the Fierce, Focused and Feminine podcast. I'm Davindra Ojala, the Lightworker Coach. I'm your host for today, and this is the space where I have real, raw and naked conversations with powerful, soulful women about life, health, relationships and business. So let's welcome our guest for today. Welcome, Helen Reid.
Hey, nice to be here. Thank you for having me here, Davinda.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for taking this time to join us, because I know you've got so much to share with us today. So Helen is a leading online mentor. You have to tell me, Helen, if I get any of this wrong at all, if you want to add anything in. So Helen is a leading online mentor specializing in mums and mums-to-be to claim their power and change the game for the next generation. She takes her clients on a journey of self-realization by helping them master personal connection, rock solid faith and confidence in who they really are. I think we all need that. And the courage to step outside their comfort zone as they up-level their life and relationships. Also the founder, and I love this, founder of the Evolve Mama Academy, which provides mums to be with training and certification as trainers as well. So we're going to dive more into this so we can get a fuller picture. So thank you so much for being with us, Helen.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, a pleasure.
Lovely. So Helen isn't actually UK based. You were UK based, but you've recently had a move, haven't you?
Yes. So I was based in Buckinghamshire. I was in High Wycombe, and I recently moved my family. I've got two children, Mia, who is 6, and Jack, who is 4. And my husband and I decided that it was time. We both have location independent businesses. So we just decided to take the leap and so we've moved over to the south of Spain, and we haven't looked back, to be honest. It's been an incredible journey, and it's just amazing to be here. And I first had the idea around last autumn, and we were homeschooling our children in England, and I just Googled world schooling Spain, and this community came up that was in Andalusia. Mm-hmm. Something just sparked inside me, when you just get that, oh wow, and your heart just lights up. And I said to my husband, this looks really amazing. I think we should sell our house and move here.
And what was his first response back to that?
He was like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, you just, to be honest, nothing surprises me these days, but this is really, going quite far this time. And I was like, yeah, but seriously, we could just, we have nothing tying us here. We bought our house there when I was commuting into London and working as a lawyer and it felt like we were continuing to live a commuter life, but without any need to do so anymore. So it was, anyway, it didn't take him long to come round to the idea that this was a really good opportunity. And that if we didn't like it, we could just come back. It's not a big deal, there's no, you're not kind of stuck.
I love that. I absolutely love that, because that is something especially when we're connected in our bodies. And one thing which I really love to do with my clients is make sure before they're making solid decisions or big decisions is to be embodied, because we have such intuition, we have such powerful senses. So you have just tapped into that, and was this gut instinct, or was it just a awareness? Was it a direct knowing? How do you connect to the body and allow the body or the mind? What's your way in making powerful decisions like this?
I am a real heart person, so I really connect in with my heart. And when I do that, because traditionally I've been a very analytical person. I was, that's how I became a lawyer. And I'm always, I was always in my head and always wanting to know the facts. And whenever I would try and make a decision, it would be, lots of research. I would always be on Google looking at the pros and cons. And so in my previous way of doing things, I would have been like, reading all there's a Facebook group for the community that we've moved into it's World Schooling Andalusia, and I would have been on there like reading all the posts. I did go in there and have a look and get it, but it was more to soak up the feeling of it and get an idea for how it felt energetically. But yeah, it would have been a much more logical and analytical process. But now and because that's the way that I naturally did things, getting out of that habit was not easy, because it's something that is your default way of dealing with decision making. So yeah, now I make a conscious effort to connect to my heart, and I find that when I take some deep breaths, I pretty immediately get out of my head and into my heart, and I connect into that heart space, and I just know, like, that I either get a feeling that is very expansive and very light and open, or I get a very heavy, tight, constricted feeling in my chest, and it just feels very wrong. And actually, when we moved out of London to our house in High Wycombe, I had that feeling continuously. And I'm glad that we moved there, and it facilitated a lot of growth. But I remember the difference between when we were moving out of London and everything went wrong with the house sale. 2 buyers fell through, and it was all a big struggle. And eventually we moved in. But yeah, there was always this heavy constricted feeling, but I wasn't so good then at knowing what that meant and being able to decipher what the implications were for me in life. So it was part of the learning process. But then with this, everything was just, it just feels like my head says, like, you're crazy, but my body and my heart just says, wow, like, go for it. And that was, and then we did it, and everything was smooth. The house sale was, super quick, not really any issues. Finding somewhere to live here was just like, here you go, exactly what you want. Like, it was just, and so I think that is such a testament to what happens when you listen to your heart. And it takes a lot of courage, because, as you know, like, your head is saying, no, that's no, that's not safe, that's not okay, that's not the sensible decision. And your family as well are saying, they're having these we had these like emergency family meetings with my parents and my husband's parents, and they're from the very traditional way of living and working and saving, and this is all alien to them. So moving through all that as well is like, it takes a lot of strength, because you have to know so deeply within you what is right for you and what is true for you, to be able to keep going even when everyone is saying, you're crazy, this is going to be the end of you, this is a disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something which we really have to learn to master. I was at a Lee Harris event last weekend, and he called this the body test. So when you're asking yourself questions, to come into the body and give yourself the 2 options. And it's a great way of starting to practice, to see, okay, if I make this choice and decision, how does it feel in my heart, in my gut, what's happening in my brain, and vice versa. And one will be expansive and one will contract. And I feel that is one of the biggest ways that we can start to step into our power and learn to trust that. So I think that is so powerful, and that's a huge gift to share with the fierce focused feminine community, because the 3 principles of the fierce focused feminine community are power, worth, and potential. And once those three feel really embodied, manifestations and everything come to us, and we can feel that ease, we can feel that flow. So thank you so much for sharing that story, because I think that's given everybody a really useful tip already, which can create massive transformation. Now, what I'm keen to know is, from your perspective, if there is somebody very new, or somebody's listened to this podcast who's very new to the mind, body, soul connection, or is in a position where they are where you were previously. So you were a lawyer, so you were very much in the head. So what advice would you give to them about making big decisions? So if they had a decision they needed to make, and sometimes the mind can be very, yes, 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 I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. How do they get the balance? How do they really fully know this is the mind, this is the body? How would you navigate through them? Would you tell them to dive in and make that shift, make that change? If somebody's saying, right, I want to travel and I'm just going to leave my job, I'm going to leave everything, off I go because my spirit guide has told me to. What advice would you give to them?
Okay. I think it's a very, very individual process, and I think that, you know, different personality types have different approaches, and I've always been quite a all-in kind of person. So I'm like, right, well, if we're doing this, we're really doing it, and this is what we're doing, and that's why, you know, things have unfolded as they have. But I think that there's a real danger in waiting for clarity. I think it's and so if somebody is thinking about making a big decision in their life, but they don't know whether it's the right thing to do, or they don't feel clear about what their heart is saying, I actually think it really encourages a state of prolonged procrastination and inaction if we say, oh, well, I'm just going to meditate on this for 3 months, and then I'm going to receive the clarity I need, and then I'm going to take action. I think that is dangerous, because I think it means that probably you'll get to the end of 3 months and you'll still not be clear, because whenever we're seeking something, we're sitting in the vibration of not having it. So when we're seeking clarity about how to move forward, we're actually, you know, giving energy to the idea that we don't know, and then that just grows and grows.
Yeah.
So my advice would be to not necessarily make the big decision, but to try and break it down in some way so that you can take action now on some part of it. So if it was about like, you know, say you felt like you wanted to change your job and you were feeling unhappy, you wake up in the morning and you feel like so without any motivation to get out of bed, everything, and you feel sluggish, everything is just feeling like a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I would first of all drill down into why, like, what actually is it that you're not enjoying? Is it because there's something, that's not lining up for you about the people you work with? Is it the work that you're doing? Is it the particular clients that you're working with right now? Is it the location? Is it the journey to and from work? Is it a combination of all of it? Or is there some, and then once you've got your list, maybe rank which one is the most important why for you, so that you've got a list of priorities.
Great.
And then
Yeah.
Once you've broken it down, then you can start feeling into, so feeling into whether there is something that you can do to change it now, like this minute, so that you can, and yes, then you could meditate on what action you can take in relation to that particular issue today. Like, there's no, oh, I'm going to wait and see what happens and see what clarity I receive. It's just, I need to do something to change, because as I'm sure you've shared already with this beautiful community, we are blessed with our bodies as a way to navigate through our life and our decision-making processes.
Yes.
And so, as we've just said, when you're feeling expansive, when you're feeling light and everything feels open and amazing, then that's a full body yes. That's your soul saying, go, 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 don't stop. Like, go for this. And so we need to start listening to our bodies, but we don't need to be overwhelming ourselves by saying, okay, we need to listen to our bodies in relation to this huge life change. We can start breaking it down and practicing tuning in and what it feels like to do that on more, smaller broken down parts. And even, in relation to, if you're very new to it, then in relation to what you're going to eat, in relation to what you're going to spend your evenings doing, whether you're going to watch something on Netflix or whether you're going to go to a yoga class, or just start tuning into how your body feels, so that when it comes to taking action on those bigger subjects, you're much more comfortable and you can just go with it. But I would definitely say that listening to your body and taking action in response is very, very powerful.
Lovely. I think that's fabulous, the way you've shared that with us all, because I think from that, actually, there's so much I could ask you and want to ask you as well. We'll have to have another session with Helen later as well. But I feel that is really powerful, because especially now, when the energies are at such high speed, so we can create transformation so much more quickly and change our lives in so many different areas much quicker than what we could have previously. And this is very much with the higher dimensional energies going from third dimension up to fifth dimension, and we're all feeling this pull towards that direction. Now, what I'm seeing with some people is it can get really overwhelming. They're trying to leap off the mountain before they lay the foundation. They're feeling overwhelmed. They're feeling burnt out. And for me, I have this strong belief that, no, the whole point is this should be fun. We should be having so much joy. And what we're really learning from these high speed energies is not to get somewhere quickly, but to really be in the moment and enjoy the shift, enjoy the transformation. And we have to really be in the body. So I always say it's really important to have that big dream, that vision, but then break it down. I normally say 5 to 7 milestones. Get your milestones down. From those milestones, you're only looking at that first milestone, which means you can ditch all the rest, put it to one side and just go, okay, that first milestone, what are the steps? What are the actions I need to take to reach that first milestone? Which means you can go, this is manageable. I can do this. This is fun. This is enjoyable. And it's a completely different vibration. Because just as you said, I truly believe that you will know when it's time. It won't go by you. The universe will make sure you act when you need to act and create that shift and create that change. But everything up to that is where we're fine-tuning along the way. And sometimes we can act prematurely and hurt ourselves. And I was an expert at that. I was so keen to get to the end destination. I had such a dream and a vision, and I would act prematurely. And in fact, I thought I was facing my fears, but what I was doing was terrifying my inner child, who then got more and more resistant because there was no safety and security for her. So she started really rebelling, and I found it started getting really hard. And I had to go straight back to that foundation and go, oh, what's going on? Actually, she's terrified and I'm not listening. But she doesn't want to do it when she's terrified. She wants to do it when she feels safe, when she trusts. And so it's a completely different dynamic. So as we're being really raw, really naked, we're taking off the masks in our conversation today. I would love to know a situation or a scenario or an experience you've had in your life that has shifted the trajectory, that has been a challenge, or something that you can share from the heart where you've been at your deepest level of vulnerability, pain, or discomfort, and knew something had to change.
Okay. Okay. I'll go deep. I'll go as deep as I can go.
Yes, please. This is what this show is all about. This show is, you can wear as much as you like. You can do what this is about. Being yourself is it's totally what we teach. So we like to go deep, and we want to be that space to allow other people to realize we're all in this stuff together.
So when I was still working as a lawyer, I had already, I'd say, first of all, the biggest turning point in my life was giving birth and becoming a mum, which is why I'm so passionate about helping mums, and particularly mums to be, so that they can like create that foundation and, you know, really deal with their own, it's not a case of dealing, but address and really nurture their own inner child before they then become a mother. And I definitely didn't do that. And I wasn't, my spiritual journey started when I had my first child. So it's been and it was like going from being amazingly capable, always being able to do everything, always getting, you know, great grades. The only thing I'd ever failed was I didn't pass my driving test the first time. That was the only time. Wow. And, you know, everything was just, you know, I just did anything and it was great. And you just, you know, always, but that's great. But at the same time, it comes with a lot of pressure. But then when I had a child, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't control this situation. I can't, and I felt so vulnerable and so exposed, because it wasn't how I thought it was going to be. Like my you know, breastfeeding was really, really tough, and we had like about 5 weeks I was dry pumping, because in the hospital at that point midwives were still making babies have formula if they hadn't latched properly in the first like day, basically, so they didn't give you a lot of time. And there was a lot of pressure, and when it's your first child you're like, oh well, I'll just do whatever they tell me. And then I knew better with the second, but with the first I was like, okay, so gave her formula, and then my milks, and then she didn't latch properly and my milk supply wasn't very good, so I was like sitting there with a double pump, dry pumping for 5 weeks every day until my and then feeding her in between, and it was just totally exhausting. But I did it because it was sort of sacrificial, you know. It was like, I'm doing it but I'm exhausted, and which just isn't the energy that I would prefer for a mum and a baby to be experiencing. Anyway, so that happened, and and everything was just hard work. Like the delivery was quite, she'd had like one tooth, so but she was face up, so she had like a big kind of bruise on her face, like all over her eyebrows, and then it went all like scabby, and it stayed for like 6 or 8 weeks. But it was just this constant reminder of like the delivery, and I'd done hypnobirthing, so at home we'd got to like 9 centimeters dilated, and so it was only when we got to the hospital and it all stalled, and there was like lots of talk, and ended up being like that. But it was just this reminder of like how the delivery had been just in my face every day, and then the breastfeeding didn't work, and it just felt like totally overwhelming, and it just carried on like that. Like everything carried on, and I just didn't know where to turn. I had no idea why I was feeling so terrible and why everything was so difficult. Mm-hmm. And as I say, it was like just a big contrast from before and after.
Mm-hmm. And did you struggle to find support? Did you feel there's not somewhere where you could go that you'd be understood? So was it isolating?
Yeah, I'd say that there's at that time, so that was like in 2012. So at that time, there was a big, like if you went to like a breastfeeding clinic, or they were one of the ladies was actually very helpful, but it's all about your output. It's all about, okay, like how many pounds is the baby putting on, and how many poos is the baby doing, and it's all about like the outcomes. It's all about the results. No emotional support, and no focus on the mother whatsoever. And so that is just huge, because now what I know is that we need the absolute reverse, and then the output is perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, and so then so that was a big challenge. But then much later on, when I was just about to leave my job as a lawyer, and I'd already decided I was leaving and I was moving out, and moving into energy medicine work, which is what I did straight after that. And I was sitting in a cafe, and I was having my lunch, and I was reading a book, and I'd been like drawn to this particular book, and I can't even remember which book it was, and I can't exactly remember the words that I read, but it was something about the inner child, and it was something about sexual abuse. And I read those words, and for the first time in my life, I just had this like level of knowing that I'd never experienced in my life, like fully in my body. And I was like, oh my gosh. And when I was a child, I remember I used to have this recurring dream about my grandfather having sex with me, and I used to think, how am I having that dream? That's so inappropriate. Mm-hmm. Like, that's terrible. And used to be really like, shame on me, and how could I'm such a terrible person for allowing that to happen. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. And then like, it was like this piece of a jigsaw puzzle came into place. And now when I look back, I'm like so grateful for that awareness, and so grateful for that that moment, and being drawn to that book, and having that all come together. But at the time I was like, in shock, and completely like, oh my goodness. I went back to work, and I said to my boss, I need to go home. And I had like 2 weeks off work. I was at home, like just, and it was a really difficult period of time because it had implications for, like, my grandfather's not alive, and my mum has always exhibited signs of some kind of sexual abuse, and I told my younger sister, and she just felt sick in her stomach, and she'd never wanted to stay there alone, and there was a whole load of stuff that came up, and it ended up just being so raw, and it brought up so much for the whole family, and it was just, but it was, now I look back, it's so incredibly healing, so just so healing to be able to nurture yourself through that kind of realization and integration. It was very, very powerful for me. And actually, and also realizing why these things happen, and learning that I'm a big believer in the fact that we've had many lifetimes, and that it isn't just this life. And so when I think about that experience in the context of, however many hundreds of lifetimes I've lived for and everybody else has lived for, it's these experiences I honestly believe happen to help us grow and to help us evolve. And there are so many times that I could have not, that I didn't feel like that when I first had that piece of the jigsaw given to me. And but now it's been such a foundational part of my expansion and my evolution, and now the most recent development of it, and this is going to sound crazy to lots of people, is that I always used to see, so my granddad died when I was about 16, and I used to see him in my room at night, and I said it to my mum once, and she was like, oh, don't be ridiculous, how parents normally respond. And I just have this vivid memory, like he used to be there, and I've seen him since my spiritual journey has been progressing. I've seen him, and I'm like, oh, that's so weird. And then most recently, I've actually learned to completely and fully forgive him and forgive myself. And he's with me really quite often. And it sounds crazy, but he's guiding me, and I understand that to so many people that could seem like a bit creepy, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like when I'm seeing him, I'm reminded that I can see the divine everywhere, like no matter what, and that he was doing the best that he could do with what he had at the time, in the lifetime that he was living, and that was it. And that this is all part of the plan. This is all part of integrating the divine feminine with the divine masculine, and bringing up all this stuff that, there's so much trauma. My story is just one in however many million, billion probably, there is trauma everywhere. And and I honestly believe that we're being called to bring it all to the surface, to heal it, to forgive, and to accept that that is part of the journey, and that actually if we do that, then we are really calling our power back, really cultivating that inner strength, and then from that place being able to help other people cultivate their strength and step into their power and call back their power. So yeah, that was a very long story.
And so beautifully shared from the heart, Helen. So I want to really honour you and thank you for sharing that, because it's come from your heart, and it's come from a place where we can see that's been a tremendous journey that takes huge courage to face, which you were willing to do for all of us, which I think is so beautiful. So you've chosen to step forward. You've chosen to heal that. You've chosen to keep going. And I can't imagine how painful that must have been for you at times to go through that. But it's your courage, it's your light, it's your faith to do that for yourself, which shifts the energy for all of us women and for the next generation. And this is, for me, it's just a huge power source of just love and beauty that emanates from you. Even when you share that painful story, it's from beauty, it's from love. So thank you so much. And I feel really honoured you've shared that. And
my pleasure.
And I know the women in the group will be so wanting to connect with you, and thank you too. So thank you from me and everybody else that listens to this podcast. Now, you've touched on something which really resonates with me and the Fierce Focused Feminine Tribe, which is the alignment of the divine feminine energies. And forgiveness absolutely is a journey, and there's going to be some people who aren't at the point where they feel they can even think about forgiving, and it is a journey, it is a process. But I do really resonate with the awareness that we are here to heal these wounds. We are here to heal some of this dense energy, which is not just ours, which comes from the ancestral line and the collective. And we're here to come together as women to heal and allow ourselves to be vulnerable enough to face the most uncomfortable, rawest emotions that we've judged ourselves. Because if we're not, they will be seeping out into our life and affecting those we love and creating disconnection from what we really deserve. So the more we're willing to say, okay, the divine feminine, she is fierce. She's so fierce. She is willing to face rage, anger, pain. She's willing to go, and terror. She's willing to let it move through her body, because she knows she is so much greater than any of that. And the gift is, we're going to force you to your limit until you know who you truly are. And sometimes it takes us to the grip of terror or pain or suffering, that we have to find another solution, which is finding us, the true self, our power. And like I said, realizing we're so much bigger. And I feel one of the most important things from your message that's really come through, which I've been a huge advocate for, is to heal this planet. It means healing the divine masculine and the divine feminine and bringing them together, not creating a bigger gap. And so if we have been harmed or abused in any way from the masculine energy, we cannot fight that. We cannot judge that. We need to shift ourselves and come into alignment with love so that they feel safe to change and to perform, because they have only created wounding because it was unconscious and passed down to us, same as us, which is where the forgiveness is. It's realizing it's not the person. It's never the person. It's just the unconsciousness and the soul lesson they've chosen to take on. And I said something to one of my friends the other day, which she was like, oh, what do you mean? And it's through an experience which was hugely traumatic for me, hugely traumatic. And I said, thank God he chose to come down and cause me that level of pain so that I might know my power. And this is what we're really being called to do, is step into our power and move through these waves. So thank you. Honor your story hugely.
Yeah, that's so true. That really, if we lived in an absolute world where there was only love, we would have no appreciation for what that love actually is. And so even though the trauma and the pain and the suffering can seem like it's a waste of time and energy, and that it's not necessary, and why can't we just, just do away with it all?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a really, really important part of the human experience, because without experiencing what it means to experience trauma and fear and suffering, we can't fully comprehend the beauty that is love.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all beautiful. The whole thing is beautiful, and it makes the journey incredibly exhilarating when you're able to appreciate it from that perspective, I think.
Yeah. And that feels wholesome. It feels complete. And it's very much part of one of the spiritual teachings is, in life you will be given all of it until you realize you are the holding space for all of it. You're not the good, you're not the bad, you're not the light, you're not the dark, you're the holding space through which it all plays itself out.
Yeah.
And that's enlightenment, that's freedom. And it feels more and more of us realizing we can step into that awakening and that enlightened place now. We don't have to spend years in meditation. We don't have to do all the things that we had to do previously to wake up to the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
So tell us all about the Evolve Mama Academy, and a bit more about who might work with you and how would they know they need you? What might they be challenged with right now, and how they're going to be benefited from connecting with you?
Okay, so the Evolve Mama Academy is super, super exciting for me, because since I transitioned out of law, I've been helping mainly women and some men who are working in the professional world mainly, and who are really struggling with, the absolute chaos that is modern life, and particularly when they're juggling a family and they're juggling their work, and dealing with all of the emotional energies that because of the time that we're living in are now coming to the surface and asking to be addressed. And so it's all just got a bit too much, and that was sort of my story. So I have been helping those individuals to move through that in a way that really aligns with their soul, and helping them to tap into that divinity within them so that they can feel it and experience it. And once they do that, they can't forget it. For me, it's really about the experience, because I can tell someone until I'm blue in the face, how important it is to be an observer of your thoughts, and how important it is to tap into your body and be in your body and be in the present moment. But unless somebody can actually experience it, they are really none the wiser. So that's really important. And then the Evolve Mama Academy has been born because I've been seeing that the work I've been doing with those individuals takes them to a certain point, but what they really want is to liberate themselves from the constraints that they feel around what they should be doing in their working life. And people who want to go away and they want to help people, they want to share what they've experienced with other people and be able to pass on that level of transformation. And then they look at, you know, all of the different courses. And for me personally, if I was to look at your sort of traditional courses now, like, you know, that there are so many courses that you can do. And I just think that we have a very narrow view about what's acceptable and what's a, you know, what's a real qualification and what's not a real qualification. And part of the Evolved Mama Academy's birthing was due to the fact that I'm working with a coach at the moment who quite openly says that she has never been certified in anything. She, you know, her priority is to connect with who she is, share from her heart, and guide others on their path as well. And
yeah,
you know, and she doesn't need a qualification for that. She needs to be absolutely 100% committed to embodying that in her life every single day, and that's what qualifies her.
yes.
And so that's what the Evolved Mama Academy is all about. It's all about empowering those women who have been through that transformation to then go away and help other people to go through it as well. And what they are able to do as a result of the training that they receive and the certification is they learn to embody who they are. They become qualified in learning to embody who they are, and learning what it means to experience the whole of them every single day, and to just build and build and build and expand and expand and expand, and for that journey to be the most wonderful gift. And as you've said before, it's never about the destination. We're not going anywhere. We're not like, oh, we're arriving at enlightenment. That's not what we're here for. We're here to enjoy every single part of our evolution. And if we commit to that, and if we commit to enjoying it, and we commit to the pure embodiment that we are being called to step into, then we have the most amazing opportunity to help so many other people, without even realizing, you know, the ripple effect of what we're creating. So that's what this is about. It's about passing on the gift of transformation and embodiment. And so it's for people who are feeling called to help other people, who know that they've got these natural abilities, these things that come really easily to them. You know, often they're found giving advice. People come to them for help. People come to them for guidance, and they just think, well, that's just natural. You know, everybody can do that. Everybody has this, has people coming to them, has people following their advice, has people wanting to learn from them, and they dismiss it, and they think, well, that's easy for me, so it's easy for everybody else, and they just think it's common. And we all do that. We dismiss our natural gifts, that we can do freely without even thinking about it, because we think that if we're going to be able to use them in our work, it has to be really hard, and it has to be a struggle. So this is about moving into a new time where we get to do the work that comes naturally and easily to us, and we get to light up, you know, the lives of others in the process, and it gets to be fun, and it gets to be joyful, and it gets to be full of abundance.
Great. So are the women in the academy then, and yourself, are you specifically reaching out to mums, to women who are feeling stuck as a mum, feeling uncomfortable with their position?
Yeah, so mums or mums to be. And, you know, if a mum to be can be someone who knows at some point that they're going to have children. They don't have to be pregnant. But someone who is really, it's a woman who is so aware of what an impact she can have now on the legacy that she leaves for the next generation. So whether she's already had a child, whether she's having a child, or whether at some point she's going to have a child, she knows that the way that she lives and the energy that she embodies is what is going to, you know, completely determine what her children are going to inherit, and the conditioning and the programming and the.
Could you give some specific examples of the transformation that they might be able to expect?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, there's a bit of background noise here. Some people with doors. I hope that you can't hear it too much.
At the
moment. So, in terms of specific transformation, the women who go through this process are generally going to be experiencing a lot of anxiety, overwhelm, anger. Anger is a really big one for women and for mums, and it's something that is really swept under the carpet, and we kind of pretend that we don't experience it. And I remember when I first started sharing about anger, and I did a live the other day, but a while ago when I first started sharing in my Facebook group, I was amazed. I kind of thought, well, I'm being, you know, I'm being guided to share this, but this feels really weird, because surely, you know, it's just me that's experienced this. And you kind of convince yourself that other mums don't behave in that way, don't allow themselves to get angry or aggressive with their children. And then when I first started talking about it, I was just, you know, I realized what a big topic it is, and what a big area of growth it is for us as women and mothers. And it makes sense, because the dynamic that we see in the family environment is reflected globally, always. So when we're seeing anger, violence, and you know, war on a global scale, we know that it's, you know, it's coming from the micro level, and so we really need to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
So part of the transformation is to really allow yourself to become emotionally healthy.
Yes.
To allow emotions to flow through you, to honor how you feel, and to allow your children to learn that as well right from the start, so that they don't have all of this shame around feeling human, natural emotions. And anger is one of those natural emotions. It's not bad, it's not wrong, it's a natural part of the human experience, as is fear, as is grief and sadness. And it's learning and educating ourselves about that, so that we can become healthier emotional beings that, you know, that we were really born to be.
Lovely. Great. And that obviously impacts how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, the results we give out, what we get back. So it has a huge impact. Our emotional body has a huge impact on our business, what we're receiving. So that is a huge transformation for women, absolutely. And I think one of the key things, again, you've really highlighted there, is we're having to really accept anger within us. And as women, I do believe that we've been conditioned to not have anger. and to be all loving, to be the all loving goddess, to be to be absolutely perfect, to be kind and to be compassionate. And yet the truth is that can never be authentic if we haven't allowed what needs clearing and acceptance to move through us. And so many of us are creating the disease, the toxicity and the unwanted results because there's a refusal to feel this anger. Because I watched your live yesterday as well, and I feel it's a really powerful message, because when we can really learn to love the anger and be with the anger, then we can be with ourselves fully, love ourselves, and that energy will then pass on to our children as well. And it's that resistance to, I don't want to feel anger because then that makes me bad or wrong. It's the self-judgment. And accepting anger frees us from the judgmental mind, which is what we're really, really wanting. We're wanting freedom from the judgmental mind, so that we're just free to be ourselves without some annoying voice, whether it's the critical voice, etc., etc. So that's, you're offering true freedom to women. You really are saying, okay, you have an opportunity to have freedom. And I've been there, I've been on the path, and I can show you and direct you and hold your hand, support you to move through that journey, because it is a rocky journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And I truly believe nobody can do it on their own. We need coaches, we need mentors, we need other women, we need the support. And please do, women, if you are watching this and you've stayed with us, reach out. If you find you're in this position, we have somebody incredibly heart-centered who can support you, who can help empower you and get you into that space where, not just for yourself, your family, but we all need you. And this is where we're being called to take greater responsibility, because we can't pass the buck anymore. The buck has to stop with you. And when you really say the buck stops with me, I've got to create this shift, I've got to create this change, the universe will so reward you. Even if there's some fear about having the time or having the money, commit, set the intention, the rest will come. So thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for your time and sharing so many nuggets of wisdom, your inspiration and your energy. So to finish with, I've got 3 short questions. You won't have long to answer them. We're going to go straight through them. So it's got to be what comes out the top of your head. So
okay.
I like to put some gentle, loving pressure on to my clients. Last 3 questions, so you can just explore and see what the subconscious mind throws at you. So question 1. If you could send a message to the entire world, what would you say?
Love yourself.
Like it. If you were an animal, what animal would you be and why?
A horse, because they are elegant and beautiful.
Wonderful and powerful.
And powerful, yeah.
If you could ask a single person one question and they had to answer truthfully, who and what would you ask?
Oh my gosh. I would ask God, who are you? And God would say, I am love.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on this show, Helen. Are there any other pieces of wisdom or anything you would like to share? Most importantly, please do let us all know how we can contact you. What is the best way of connecting with you?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Davinda, for having me. It's been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And I really honour you for the work that you do and your contribution and you holding space for this community. Yeah, we're very grateful to have you. And if anyone wants to connect with me, the best way to do that is through private messenger, or there's a link to my Evolved Mama Academy on my profile. So I would love to have you reach out, and I'd love to share more details about the transformation that the program offers, and also the way that you can then pass that transformation on to others through the training and certification.
Wonderful, thank you. So thank you so much for watching our show and being with us today. So I will put links to how you can contact Helen down below. And please do remember, we have the most wonderful, inspiring, powerful women on this show who are leaders, who are visionaries, who are change agents. They are forging new paths. So this is a place to be inspired, to stay on your journey too. And if you would like to be a part of Fierce Focus Feminine, do connect and share this with other women, because it's our time to rise, ladies. So live naturally, be true to yourself, and honor your soul. Namaste.